Hola, it's Joe Pardavila, and welcome back to another edition of Forbes Books Radio. Today I am hanging out with two dynamic businessmen. One is the founder and CEO of CurtCo Media, a new podcast network dedicated to creating, distributing, and hosting inspirational content. And the other is the founder and CEO of Vices, the luxury subscription box business that connects luxury brands and luxury consumers. Did I mention they're also father and son? Their names are Bill Curtis and Daniel Curtis. Hello, gentlemen.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
How you doing?
Bill, let's start with you. I mentioned CurtCo Media at the top. A lot of people recognize your name with the Rob Report, but for folks who aren't familiar with you, tell us about your media company.
Well, we're about 35 years old. CurtCo Media has had 11 different companies, 74 different media brands ranging from luxury titles to computer magazines that would put you to sleep, to regional magazines, lots of websites, apps. We've been in 18 countries, and it's been quite a run. And just to cut to the chase, we sold the magazines about 3.5 years ago. We decided to start a podcast network because of the vibrance in the marketplace and how fast it's growing, and everybody's going to be listening to podcasts somehow, whether in their cars or cell phones or the Amazon Alexa or you name it, you're going to be listening to podcasts. It's kind of a new golden age of radio.
I want to step back, though, Bill. What happened to magazines? Because it seems like the print media is the one of all medias that wasn't able to pivot and sort of flourish in the digital age. I mean, you saw TV do it, the music industry did it, even radio to an extent, embracing podcasts and streaming. What happened with print media?
People stopped reading, Joe, and they ended up being kind of picture books with captions. Look, there's still some wonderful magazines out there. Don't get me wrong. As a matter of fact, Rob Report still exists, and it's more beautiful than ever. And it's run by a guy named Jay Penske. But the marketplace had become kind of a combination of websites, magazines, newsletters. Digital came in, and probably the most important part of the business is creating a connection between your consumers and advertisers or marketers that frankly pay for the whole thing. And one of the things that happened is consumers were much more reactive in digital forms and could respond to advertisers, and advertisers could measure the response very quickly on websites and other forms of digital entertainment, digital news, what have you. And so part of what happened was, yes, people stopped reading. People certainly stopped going to the newsstand to pick up their selected information because they could just do it on their phones and do it on their computers and gather specifically what they were looking for. And at the same time, the immediate response to advertisers was so much more profound that advertisers started moving toward more digital forms of media.
So Dan, so it's safe to say that you were pretty much born with the entrepreneurial gene, right?
I certainly had a chance to learn from the best and had the rare privilege to grow up within a media business and grow up within Rob Report magazine, which did not suck, Joe, okay. To be able to get access to the people, the places, the things that were the very best in the world of luxury from an early age.
He was also a natural, Joe.
Now, did you feel, Bill, that you wanted to, as a father to a son, and you have this sort of empire, do you worry of like, oh boy, is it putting too much pressure to have my son follow my footsteps, or should I let him follow his own path, which he eventually may have done? But was that something you thought about while you were raising Dan?
Well, actually, he did start his own path, and our paths came together. You know, it's always dangerous, both for a son and for a father or a daughter to be in the same business, because it puts a kind of a pressure on all things, relationships within the company. And, you know, I have to admit that Daniel can probably speak to it, but he was under a lot of pressure to perform better than anybody else and be a better person, be kind of more empathetic, more community building, more fun to be around in order to be in the same company. Otherwise, it's just that old story where you have, oh, God, he's got his kid in the business.
Right.
And it ends up being a problem. He ended up being by far the highest performing guy in the business, and he took it really seriously. He ended up running our international business in 18 different countries where Rob Report was.
Wow, that's awesome. And Dan, I'm just finishing reading the Rockefeller book that Chernow wrote a few years ago called Titan. I'm not sure if you read it, but it talks about, John D. Rockefeller Sr. and his son, Junior, and the pressure that Junior must have had to live up to his father. Did you ever feel that pressure while you were growing up and be like, man, my dad's super successful. Am I ever going to be like that?
Look, there's quite a bit of pressure in the business, and I knew that to be taken seriously. So I ended up moving to the New York office. The headquarters was in Malibu, where we're sitting now, and I knew everybody expected me just to be, the kid of the owner of the business, and I needed to show them that I was going to be impactful and valuable to everybody's lives there. And the great thing about joining a family business is, you get a sense of ownership, and this is something that is not just a job, it's something that I wanted to build. And I approached it with a perspective of, joining Robb Report magazine, thinking about it for the long term and thinking about how do we build this business beyond where it is. So my first project was working on the team that was taking Robb Report for the first time, being an online publication.
That was a good move, probably.
And it's bizarre when you think about, I remember back in 2007, I was going around talking to Tiffany and Gucci and any number of luxury brands, talking about how we need to work together in a digital capacity. And these luxury brands were saying, oh, no, we're luxury. Luxury should not be online. And how quickly that then pivoted and really started a whole process of everything that I was focusing on is, okay, what's next? How are we going to tell our stories? How are we going to communicate luxury in a new way to better connect with our audience and better serve the brand partners that make up our advertising base?
And so, Dan, where your dad sort of stuck with the media empire, you sort of pivoted to more of a retail e-com experience with Vices.com, which was a monthly luxury box membership. Tell us how you ended up there.
Joe, earlier you said that, from your perspective, print media didn't pivot. And creating the Robb Vices luxury box, that was my pivot for print media. I had this epiphany moment after I walked out of a meeting with Johnny Walker Blue Label, which was a big partner of ours. And, we're finalizing the ad deal for the year. And all they're saying is, we need more product in people's mouths. We want your editorial support, but we need people to taste and experience our product. And we were hearing the same thing from Tom Ford and Ralph Lauren. People wanted our readers to touch, taste, and experience the things that we were writing about. At the same time, that's what we kept hearing from all of our readers as well. They wanted to show up to events and meet the people behind the products that we were writing about. And the problem with, event marketing is it's just not scalable. You can touch a small number of people little by little. It occurred to me that we need to get products into the hands of our readers. Also, knowing that print media distribution was not growing, I was thinking we need to find a way to train the next generation of luxury consumer to read print. Because people actually do like reading print. It feels good to have a real book in your hands. It actually feels good to have...
Dan, it's so funny you said that. I cannot do an e-reader. I love to have that book. I feel like it's almost impossible to read any of those e-readers outdoors. So yeah, no, I totally get that.
Well, it's good to know there are a couple more of us left.
That's true.
So our idea was, okay, we're actually going to create a magazine, more of a digest, something for a shorter attention span. And we're going to deliver a collection of amazing luxury items along with it. That way, it's like a three-dimensional magazine experience. It's like an event in your home. And so we started putting together these monthly boxes, a curated collection of fantastic items, wine, cocktail kits, spirits, toys, tools, gourmet food. Along with it, a guidebook that's going to introduce you to the people that made those things, why they matter, where they come from, how we would suggest that you enjoy them. And we came up with the concept. We had a VIP list that included billionaires and heads of entertainment studios and financial institutions, and had about 100 people sight unseen sign up, and started showing up to our events and meeting some of our early subscribers, and they're like, this is really cool. And we were getting unsolicited feedback from very impressive people saying they wanted to see more of this.
And this is something, by the way, that Daniel was doing while he was in charge of a few of our advertising categories and while he was managing our international partners and under a whole lot of pressure from Dad to perform in the regular part of the business while he was also spinning out this new concept.
So that's nice. So Daniel's basically moonlighting with a potentially multi-million-dollar business. Is that right, Daniel?
That's right.
That's perfectly normal.
They call it a side hustle, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about this box business. People refer to it as surprise boxes, trunks. For people who aren't familiar with it, and it's so funny. Amazon is heavily invested in the box business now. What is that space looking like?
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, I think the most recent figure I read is that it's a $20 billion business in this country. The truth of the matter is there's now a lot of different box solutions that are not the same type of business. The biggest ones that people know about are the commodity boxes, your Dollar Shave Club where you're getting your razors over and over again, the small sample boxes. People like the convenience of things showing up automatically. We now live in a world where, of course, delivery at home is even more important and necessary. And we did something audacious, which is we decided to launch a luxury box where most, subscription boxes out there are primarily pretty simple, sometimes tchotchke kind of things.
$20.
Yeah, 20. Most subscription boxes are around the $20, $25 price point. And with all subscription boxes, there's an expectation of outsized value, which we do deliver. Our box is $129 a month. But with that, we deliver much, much more value and a really rich experience. And we've provided something that is designed to be a date night at home, a true discovery moment relevant for people who love to travel and be the first to try new things.
And Bill, let me ask you, because you have so much experience in this field, but for people who are entrepreneurs who are maybe hesitant about getting into the luxury affluent market, what are the key components of marketing and selling to the affluent?
Well, actually, it starts with respect, a promise that you're not going to waste anybody's time and try to market something inappropriately. One of the things that you have to say about wealthy people who are in this category when you're talking about certain levels of luxury, they're not just wealthy. They're experienced consumers. They're highly educated. They tend to run businesses. They're very social. They have a certain kind of connoisseur attitude about one or another category of product or experience. So you have to respect what they know, and you have to respect their time. And every moment that you interact with them needs to be a pivotal moment, because the minute you waste one of these people's time, they're gone. In Rob Report days, we had hundreds of competitors, and they would talk about the luxury market kind of like you would talk about fish from someone on the other side of the glass in an aquarium. You'd press your nose up against the glass and say, "Oh my God, those are weird creatures that I'm watching." Where, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, where every time they talked about anything, you'd see a cha-ching. Can you imagine this guy spent $250,000 on a one-week vacation on a yacht? And you would talk about the luxury consumer or about those luxuries and, how much they cost. The true luxury consumer doesn't start every conversation with what it costs. They start every conversation with, does this stuff matter? Mm-hmm. And so if you respect them, they get to know that and they get to trust you, and you never lie. You never push a product that doesn't belong. When we bought Rob Report 25 years ago, it was basically a classified advertising vehicle for boats and planes and cars and what have you. But we basically eliminated most of the advertising immediately because we wanted to make a statement that the advertising that you saw in the magazines were actually acceptable to us. So we saw it more as a kind of a bit of an editorial spin because we thought that the advertisers reflected on the brand. And as a result, the consumer got very used to having a certain relationship with the brand and appreciated the respect.
And so on that note, Dan, when you have this Vices box, what is the gatekeeper situation in terms of what you put in that box? Just going off what your father just talked about, how about respecting your audience. How much pressure do you feel is probably, I guess, the biggest part of it for you is what goes in the box?
Absolutely. There's quite a bit of pressure to every single month to be creative and interesting and exciting. And, that is the most important thing that we do. And we spend our lives traveling the world and more recently Zooming with people around the world, checking out their new products. And a lot of the products that have been featured in the box came from relationships that were developed over my career working at Rob Report magazine. And I'd find something like a wonderful, rare Clase Azul tequila or Master and Dynamic MH40 headphones, things that are really unique and exciting, and had met people that were building these wonderful products that I had fallen in love with that I want to share. So often some of these boxes will start with a show-stopping product. Other boxes, like our recent Greek box, started with an experience that I had in Greece that I wanted to replicate in the box. So in this particular box, we had a very cool aperitif cocktail and digestif cocktail with olive oil and olives, authentic honey, cookies, things so we could actually transport our members to being in Greece. And so every time we build a box, it is about, what is this moment we're going to create for our members? How are we going to transport them somewhere else, especially now where they're stuck and bored out of their minds? This is particularly important and relevant. And creating that special moment where, again, it's like a date night in the home or just a moment of escape, that's very important. And so we want to be one of the most exciting things that happens to you on a monthly basis that comes in a sleek black box as a surprise.
What's cool about your company, though, too, is the fact that there is an aspirational aspect to the brand, because obviously it's meant for luxury consumers at first, but you don't have to be necessarily rolling with a six-figure income to buy one of the boxes, too. It sort of does have that aspirational feel to it as well.
And that's by design. We called this thing Vices because I was thinking when we're launching, this, like connecting with the next generation of luxury consumer, what are the luxuries that people gravitate towards the most, that are actually the most important to their lives? And if you ask most people, it's going to be eating, drinking, traveling. What do I do that gives me adrenaline? It's our, the tongue-in-cheek vices, which our whole philosophy is that, these vices, when they're properly appreciated and enjoyed generously in good company, they actually lead to the most virtuous parts of our lives. And these kinds of things that we deliver on a monthly basis.
How did you get Vices as a URL? Because that's, for a new company, that must have been pretty tricky.
Yeah, thank you for asking, Joe. That was we're very proud of that.
That's the secret sauce stuff,
exactly.
Right?
It took quite a long period of negotiation, and actually we just finally acquired that over the summer. So previously we're known as Rob Vices, and now we've with the acquisition of this URL, we're really building the company around the Vices brand.
That's great. So let's shift back over to CurtCo Media. Bill, what were some of the elements of podcasting that were really attractive to you?
First of all, it's the market and where media consumption is going, because the consumer's multitasking now. They don't do any one thing at a time. They might be listening to one of our podcasts, and they're at the same time they're on Bumble getting a date for the weekend, or they're busy texting their friends, or on Facebook,
or they're opening their Vices box. They're busy,
or they're opening their Vices box.
Right.
But the whole concept of this new golden age of radio, which is this podcasting concept, is actually the answer to two problems. One is the multitasking problem, where people like to do many things at a time. And the other is the fact that the consumer now wants exactly the information or entertainment that they want, and they want it at the time that they want it. The concept of broadcast used to be, the big three broadcasters would push out their content and hope that enough people come in to enjoy it, and basically you had to listen or watch or consume whatever was delivered to you from the broadcaster. That is absolutely gone and dead. The consumer now wants very specific information, and they want to be able to download it or listen to it or stream it at their own convenience. And what that did in the podcasting world is it made it grow faster than almost any other medium. So, it's a kind of a new thing. I mean, Joe, you and I are still in the pioneering stage of podcasting, and there's still more people who don't know what a podcast is than people who do. But we are up to about 160 million people in the country that have tried one, and the majority of them are listening to 4 or more shows. And here's the stuff that got me all excited. They're listening for 40 minutes plus. And so while radio is dealing with sub 3 minutes before people change the channel, while TV is being time shifted and commercials are being zapped, while websites consider an impression something that you get 3 seconds and then people are bouncing off the website and going someplace else, it was really important to us with what we like to do, which is just like what you like to do, which is you tell stories, you provide information, you create a relationship with your audience, it became real important to us, this level of engagement. So we did a lot of research, actually, when after we sold the Robb Report books, we worked with a private equity firm here in L.A., and we were trying to buy Time magazine, but not because we were all excited about the magazine itself. We wanted to develop a podcast network around it and respond to what we felt is a big need in the market, which is people accessing news in small forms and small bites.
That's awesome. And you have some podcasts for kids. You have podcasts for cars. The one thing I didn't see, and you probably know this as well as anyone, is that true crime is dominating podcasts. I think if you look at the top 10 these days, 5 out of the 10, 6 out of the 10 are true crime. Do you feel that's a fad, or do you think true crime will probably be one of the preeminent formats of the podcast?
No, I think it's going to be around for a good long time. I just didn't want to add another drop into the ocean. And so we're focusing on things that that we love this term, that matters. And we're doing a few things. For example, our Hollywood Unscripted podcast, which, if you don't mind me giving a plug to another Curtis, Jenny Curtis, my daughter, Daniel's sister, is a very accomplished actress and producer, and she produces Hollywood Unscripted, and it has A-list actors and producers and writers and directors and showrunners, and it's a weekly show where she gives those talented artists time to talk about something that's very important to them, which is their passion and how they came up in the industry, and to film buffs and TV buffs, it's like crack. They just love that kind of thing. And it's a powerful show that we're excited about, and we feel like we're making a difference both to the industry, to its guests, and to the film and TV buffs that really want to know that kind of information about their stars.
That's great. And so, Dan, as now your own man, so to speak, as an entrepreneur for entrepreneurs.
Hey.
I know. I know you've been your own man for a while, but now that you're running Vices and you're succeeding and you're reaching out to a segment of the population that's probably was underserved in this space, for other entrepreneurs out there, what do you think is the main goal? Obviously, entrepreneurial school, they teach you find a problem, fix the problem. But as an entrepreneur, what do you think is the best part of being an entrepreneur?
Well, I think once you start to see the fruits of your labor, and for me, there's nothing like the box itself when it arrives, and I start to see the reaction from our customer, and that's what I'm most passionate about. It's telling these stories and then seeing how that resonates with our members, and seeing their response once they get this epic tequila, and how that actually then impacts the lives of our partners, and seeing our partners get great sales from our customers. And so the joy of seeing the business work is something special. Also, certainly learned to have even more respect for my father, because there's been some of those sleepless nights and those heartburn moments in building a business. When you're building a company of your own, you just got to get going, and you got to make mistakes, and some of those pitfalls are pretty deep, and you got to pull yourself back up. It's absolutely worth it if you've got the stomach for it. And I happen to have a tremendous team of people who are world-class in sourcing product, in making beautiful packaging, in telling our stories in the boxes and the booklets. And also, it's a family operation. My wife is partnered with me, and she helps me build these beautiful boxes, my wife, Catherine. And it's a tremendous amount of fun. We're a team. We're building something. And, now everything's really done virtually, so we have, daily Zoom calls. But it's an absolute blast, problem solving on a daily basis.
And Bill, I'll give you the final word on entrepreneurship.
It's nice for me to watch. My son has really adopted this kind of philosophy, but something else that's very special about being an entrepreneur for your listeners is if you look at it the right way and you bring on a bunch of employees and you realize they're your responsibility to help them have better lives, more fulfillment in their lives, frankly, better health care, pay them an extra buck, and figure out a way where you can be the supporting mechanism, where it's kind of like that It's a Wonderful Life thing. You think about putting yourself in or out of someone's life, and you look at your employees, if you can absolutely convince yourself that everything you're doing is making them have a better life, it's amazing how fulfilling that is. And then you end up with, frankly, an employee base that will absolutely put their heads down and work really even harder, because it's kind of a mutual process and it's a mutual respect. And I'd say that's probably the best part about being an entrepreneur, is you get to create your own environment. It gets a little harder. We at our largest, we were about 530 or 40 employees, and it gets a little harder when you're 3 hires away from hiring the next person. But I would have to say that one of the things that I'm most proud of in watching Daniel build his career and his business is he's got these impassioned employees that take a look at every month and say, this might be our 60th month of having this box, but this one is every bit as important as our first, and this new subscriber we have is every bit as important as our first. And even though there are thousands of them there, they take a look at it as kind of a quest. And they work together, and they have a lot of gratitude for each other. And that's the best part about being an entrepreneur, is you can create that kind of environment. And Daniel does that brilliantly well.
Well said. Well, there's Bill Curtis, the founder and CEO of CurtCo Media, and Daniel Curtis, the founder and CEO of Vices. Gentlemen, thank you very much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Joe, thanks for having us.
That was fun, Joe.
Cool. And for more information on Bill, go to CurtComedia.com. And for Daniel, check out Vices.com. That's it for this edition of Forbes Books Radio. You can subscribe to all of our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please, do not forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at ForbesBooksRadio.com.